Life advice for seniors from a retired professor. Many older adults were deeply moved. Reaching our senior years is both a privilege and a challenge. As we get older, life brings new experiences, opportunities, and, of course, adjustments. Many of us find ourselves thinking about the future and wondering how we can maintain our independence, health, and happiness as we age. This is where wisdom, like the kind shared by a retired professor, can truly make a difference. This professor, having lived through decades of experience and learning, shares valuable advice specifically for seniors to help them navigate this crucial time of life. His words have touched the hearts of many older adults, encouraging them to reflect deeply on their personal habits, relationships, and priorities. In this breakdown, we will explore the most powerful lessons from his teachings and how they can empower you to live wisely, peacefully, and with dignity during your golden years. 1. Never let your children know the exact amount of your savings. One of the hardest things for many seniors is how to navigate family dynamics when it comes to wealth, especially after a lifetime of hard work and saving. The retired professor's first piece of advice may seem unusual at first, but it's one that could save you and your family from unnecessary stress and heartache. Never share the full extent of your savings with your children. You might think that transparency with your children is a sign of trust, but what many don't realize is that money, no matter how well-intentioned, can easily become a source of division. In fact, studies show that nearly 70% of family disputes revolve around the division of assets. The inheritance of wealth can sometimes turn into a battleground, especially when emotions are running high and the distribution of funds is involved. Think about it. How many times have you heard about families who stopped talking to each other after the passing of a loved one, all because of disagreements over property, money, or valuables? For instance, there's the heartbreaking story of two siblings who became so estranged after their mother's passing that they ended up in a lawsuit over their inheritance. What started as a simple act of sharing what their mother left behind became the root cause of bitter conflict and resentment. The advice here isn't to hide your finances from your children, but rather to manage expectations and avoid putting your hard-earned savings at risk. The last thing you want is for your wealth to turn into a point of contention among those you love most. Instead, consider keeping your financial matters more private. If necessary, set up a trust or legal plan that clearly outlines your wishes. This way, your children don't feel entitled to certain things, and you can protect the family from the emotional strain that comes with dividing assets. Peace of mind for everyone involved is more important than making sure everyone knows how much you've saved up over the years. 2. Treasure your spouse. Don't take each other for granted. One of the most touching pieces of advice that resonates deeply with many seniors is the professor's emphasis on not quarreling with your spouse. Once you're in your 60s and beyond, your children are busy with their own lives, and your spouse becomes your main companion. This is a crucial time to reflect on the years you've shared and the bond that keeps you grounded: loyalty, love, and companionship. As we age, we may face challenges such as declining health, loss of friends, and sometimes, a shift in our social lives. But through it all, your spouse is the person who's there beside you, sharing in the highs and lows. The older you get, the more you begin to realize that loyalty becomes more precious than love. At the end of the day, it's your spouse who will still be your greatest ally, your emotional support, and the one who shares your most intimate thoughts. The professor's advice: when we were young, we shared love; when we're old, we share loyalty, is a beautiful reminder that love in old age may not always look like it did when you were young, but loyalty and deep emotional connection are what truly matter. Take the time to nurture your relationship. Whether it's sharing a quiet cup of coffee in the morning or taking walks together, appreciating the moments you have together makes a world of difference. Don't let small quarrels or the frustrations of daily life cloud the beauty of the partnership you've built. 3. Do not raise your grandchildren. Focus on yourself. Now, this might sound harsh to some, but the professor's third piece of advice has a lot of merit. Don't spend your own money and energy raising your grandchildren. While many grandparents want to help their children by taking care of their grandchildren, this often leads to physical and mental exhaustion. Studies have found that over 60% of older adults feel drained by the responsibility of child care. It's understandable to want to be involved with your grandchildren, but it's important to remember that grandparenting is a different role from parenting. You've already raised your children, and your golden years should be about enjoying life for yourself, not being bogged down by responsibilities that might wear you out. Many times, the younger generation doesn't understand the level of energy and commitment that's needed to take care of children, especially as we get older. What begins as an act of love helping out with child care can quickly turn into feelings of being taken for granted. This can lead to resentment, especially if you don't feel appreciated or if the time and money you spend aren't acknowledged. 4. Be cautious about remarrying. Enjoy your freedom. For many widowers and widows, the idea of remarrying later in life may seem like an enticing option, especially if they feel lonely or are seeking companionship. However, the professor's advice is clear: do not rush into remarriage. At this stage of life, combining two established lives can be far more difficult than it may seem. You've both built separate routines, financial plans, and lifestyles, and blending them can lead to significant tension and conflict. Instead, embrace your independence and enjoy the freedom that comes with it. If you've spent your life sharing experiences with a partner, now is the time to explore what you love to do on your own. Pursue your passions, visit places you've always wanted to see, and take up new hobbies that excite you. There's no rush to find someone else to fill that void. The right kind of companionship will come naturally if it's meant to be. 5. Hold on to your house. Don't sell it without thought. Many seniors are pressured by their children or others to sell their homes, especially if they are no longer able to manage it. The professor wisely advises that you should hold on to your home as long as possible. A house is not just four walls and a roof, it holds memories. It's where you've experienced your most significant milestones, and it's often the safest place to return to no matter how harsh the world outside may be. When you've spent your life building a home, that home becomes more than just property. It's a source of comfort and security. Selling it just because someone suggests it might not be the best choice. While it might seem like the practical decision, don't rush into it without giving it thoughtful consideration. The story of Nancy and James, life lessons learned through experience. Nancy and James had been married for nearly 50 years when they decided to start discussing their future more seriously. In their early 70s, the couple had already experienced much of what life had to offer, raising 3 children, moving to different cities for James' job, and seeing their children grow up to start families of their own. However, as they entered their 70s, both Nancy and James started thinking more about the next chapter of their lives and the legacy they wanted to leave behind. They had spent decades working hard, and now, they were faced with new challenges and opportunities that they hadn't quite anticipated. Nancy, always the practical one, was beginning to feel the weight of aging. Her joints hurt more than they used to, and she often found herself feeling tired even after a full night's sleep. James, on the other hand, was more energetic, but he began to notice subtle changes in his health. His blood pressure had been slightly elevated for the last year, and he was experiencing more discomfort after meals. They both knew that they needed to make some adjustments, not only for their health but also for their peace of mind. One afternoon, after a quiet lunch in their cozy home, Nancy and James sat down in their living room with a cup of tea. The conversation quickly turned to their finances, something they had always handled together but never openly discussed with their children. Nancy was uncomfortable bringing up the topic, but she felt strongly that it was time for a change. "I've been thinking about our savings, James," Nancy said. "I know we've always worked hard to set aside money for our future, but we haven't really talked about it with the kids. Maybe it's time we do." James nodded but immediately felt a sense of unease. "I think we should be careful. Sharing the full extent of our savings could cause problems. You know how families fight over inheritances. I don't want that for us or for the kids." Nancy paused. She had been thinking the same thing for months but had never voiced it. She had seen it happen in families around them: siblings at odds, families broken apart over money. The thought of such a thing happening to them was unsettling. "I agree," Nancy replied. "We've worked hard to save, but I think it's best that we keep certain things private. Our children don't need to know every detail. That way, it won't become an issue later on." The first lesson: financial privacy and family peace. The decision to keep their savings and financial matters private from their children was a difficult one for Nancy and James. They had always been open with their children about everything, but now, they realized that there were some boundaries that needed to be set for the sake of their family's peace. They started making plans to consult with a financial advisor, ensuring that their estate would be handled professionally and without the potential for familial disputes. In the months that followed, Nancy and James found a renewed sense of peace. They no longer worried about their children feeling entitled to their assets or the potential for conflict. Instead, they focused on enjoying their time together, knowing that their finances were in good hands. Their children, while initially surprised by the decision, understood and respected their wishes. As Nancy and James continued with their plans, they realized how important it was to maintain boundaries and make decisions that were in the best interest of their own happiness, not just their children's expectations. This financial privacy allowed them to move forward with confidence, knowing that they weren't inadvertently causing tension in the family. The second lesson: strengthening their marriage through loyalty. Nancy and James had been through many challenges in their marriage, from the ups and downs of raising children to the stresses of moving across the country for James' career. But in their 70s, they found themselves reflecting on the deep connection they shared, and more importantly, the loyalty that had held their relationship together over the decades. They had reached a point in life where their emotional bond was more important than ever. James, though always supportive, had begun to take Nancy for granted. He assumed that since they had been together for so long, their relationship would always be strong, no matter what. But Nancy realized that maintaining a strong relationship required effort, especially in their later years. "I don't want to just get by in our relationship," Nancy said one evening. "I want us to be happy and still feel that spark we had when we were younger." James smiled and took her hand. "I agree. We've been through so much together, but we still have time to create beautiful memories. Let's not waste it." They started making an effort to show more appreciation for each other's small gestures, like complimenting each other more, taking time to talk, and even going on weekend getaways, just the two of them. They found that the simple act of treasuring each other and being present in their relationship made all the difference in how they felt. They were no longer just partners who shared a life, they were a team, committed to each other's happiness and well-being. Nancy and James had long passed the stage of passionate love that marked the early years of their marriage, but they found a new kind of affection that was just as valuable: loyalty and mutual respect. They began to cherish their bond more deeply and realized that as they grew older, their relationship wasn't just about love in the romantic sense, it was about being there for each other, no matter what life threw their way. The third lesson: embracing independence while helping others. After decades of raising children and caring for others, Nancy and James found that their golden years were increasingly about prioritizing their own needs. While they had always been the go-to caregivers for their children and grandchildren, they began to realize that this was taking a toll on their energy and well-being. One day, after spending the weekend helping care for their grandchildren, Nancy turned to James and said, "I love my grandchildren, but I'm tired. I feel like I've given so much of myself to my family that I've forgotten about the things I love." James nodded in agreement. He had seen how exhausted Nancy was after spending time with the kids, and he knew that their own needs were starting to slip through the cracks. They made a pact to set boundaries and stop overextending themselves for their grandchildren. Instead, they would focus on enjoying their own lives, traveling, and nurturing their relationship with each other. While they still spent quality time with their grandchildren, they no longer felt obligated to take on the role of primary caregivers. This allowed them to regain energy and enthusiasm for the things they loved, like gardening, reading, and taking long walks in the park. The decision to prioritize themselves didn't mean they loved their family any less, it just meant they recognized the importance of self-care and personal fulfillment in their later years. The fourth lesson: enjoying independence and freedom. Nancy had lost her first husband several years before, and the thought of remarriage was something she had always avoided. James had been a supportive friend during this time, but he also recognized that Nancy had flourished as a single woman, enjoying her freedom and independence. When the subject of remarriage came up during one of their conversations, Nancy quickly dismissed it. "I've had a fulfilling life with you, James," she said. "But I don't think I need to remarry. I've enjoyed my independence, and I've learned to appreciate the time I've had to myself. I don't want to complicate things by trying to combine lives again." James, who had always been supportive of Nancy's decisions, agreed. Remarrying at this stage would only bring complications. Instead, they both decided to focus on what made them happy in their golden years, whether that was spending time with friends, traveling, or simply enjoying the quiet moments together at home. They found that the key to happiness in their senior years wasn't about seeking out new relationships, it was about enjoying the freedom and peace that came with living on their own terms. The fifth lesson: holding on to the home. Nancy and James had lived in the same house for over 30 years. It was a place full of memories, raising their children, celebrating anniversaries, and creating a lifetime of stories. Over the years, they had occasionally talked about downsizing to a smaller home or even moving to a retirement community. But the idea of selling their house never felt right. One day, as they were talking about their future, Nancy said, "You know, James, I think it's time we stop talking about selling the house. This place holds so much of our history, and it's the one place we can always come back to." James agreed. "It's not just a house. It's our home. We've been here through thick and thin. Let's stay here and enjoy the comfort it brings us." They decided to make the house their sanctuary, focusing on making it more comfortable and manageable rather than selling it for something new. Keeping their home gave them a sense of stability, security, and continuity that they hadn't realized they needed. Nancy and James' story is a powerful reminder that as we age, it's the simple decisions we make that truly impact our quality of life. By setting boundaries, prioritizing relationships, and embracing independence, they found a balance that allowed them to enjoy their later years to the fullest. Their journey was not without challenges, but through each lesson, they found greater peace and joy. The wisdom shared by the retired professor was not just theoretical, it was lived out in the day-to-day choices they made to protect their health, relationships, and happiness. By reflecting on these lessons, Nancy and James were able to make choices that allowed them to live their later years with dignity, freedom, and love. As we've explored today, the wisdom shared by this retired professor offers invaluable insights into how we can live our senior years with dignity, peace, and joy. Whether it's protecting your finances, nurturing your relationships, or embracing independence, each piece of advice helps guide us toward a more fulfilling and stress-free life. The beauty of these lessons is that they're simple yet profound, and they can make a world of difference in how we approach our daily lives. We all have the power to make changes, to prioritize what truly matters, and to enjoy the golden years with clarity and purpose. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Your support means a lot, and it helps me continue to create content that encourages and empowers individuals like you to live healthier, happier, and more connected lives. I'd love to hear your thoughts on today's topic. What piece of advice resonated with you the most? Drop a comment below and let's start a conversation. Sharing our experiences and reflections can help others who are also on this journey of aging gracefully. Thank you so much for watching and being a part of this community. Your time is precious, and I truly appreciate you spending it here. Take care of yourself, treasure the moments you have, and remember that you are never too old to make positive changes. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.